Now we'll move on to our next speaker, Kay West. It's a 5-minute speaker.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome. Thank you for coming. Whenever you're ready, you may begin.
Good evening, trustees of the District School Board. My name is Kristen West. I'm a professional urban and regional planner and one of Georgia Allen's parent representatives. I have, in my career, had to support unpopular decisions, similar to ones you guys have been dealing with, because they were the best decisions for the larger community. And I'm not afraid to do that again in my career, and I wasn't afraid to do that as part of this arc. The only problem is that even after spending a year working on this arc, I do not understand the position of the board staff or seemingly my trustee, Trustee Bishop. I am unable to rationalize the consolidation of Prince Philip into Georgia Allen at this time for any reason. While our mandate within the arc was to only look at these 3 affected schools, my planner brain insisted on a reference for reviewing those policies and practices that I feel somewhat qualified to understand through my schooling and my work. So I did look beyond the Dalewood cluster. Also, as a planner, I should have insight on how to understand this data to come up with a similar type recommendation that the planning staff of the board have also come up with. But I was unable. So the staff report recommending an accommodation review process was requested by our committee, particularly me, in hopes that I would gain some background information. And I was provided, and our committee was provided with a 1-page recommendation sheet that was just all it was the front page that you guys receive at your trustee meetings that give you what your wording is for your motions. So given that little analysis was completed prior to the ARC process, it's strange that the staff proposal didn't change, not even a smidge after the detailed sifting through of data and information provided by community and teachers and principals, that the staff proposal did not change one iota from the beginning of the process to the end of the process. Nothing that anyone said, whether it was to just tweak the staff proposal, even minutely, to still recommend closure of Prince Philip, it didn't change, which is confusing. It begs questioning. So at this point, I'd like to bring to your attention the frustrating questions I've wrestled with for the past year. Understanding that the school board is in a serious budgetary situation with aging infrastructure, dropping enrollment overall, why were these 3 schools chosen for consolidation first of all the schools in the board? I understand you're going through waves of ARCs, going across all the school board, trying to see where you can close schools. And that is a rational and understandable thing to do. But you would think that you would start off with the schools that have the least enrollment, the greatest issue with their enrollment. Not a cluster of schools that have 91% utilization rate. You would start off like you did with King George, where you had a 50% utilization rate. Next, with minimal maintenance spent on the 3 schools over the last 10 years, Georgia Allen did receive money from the Good Places to Learn funding, which the other 2 schools were exempt from because of the mistaken PTR designation. There isn't, even after spending almost nothing on the schools, there isn't an apparent need to close a school due to an inadequate learning environment. With 20 urban elementary schools with approximately 200 students or less, and many with significantly lower utilization rates than in our cluster, it isn't because we're the smallest or the emptiest school. In fact, Bellstone, while a rural school and they should be treated separately, has only 65 students. One would think that addressing a small school with all the same administrative and capital costs as other schools, like that one, with a quarter of the population would be a higher priority than this particular cluster. And what real and tangible benefit would be realized by the school consolidation? The 283 vacant pupil spaces is across 3 schools, across the 2 schools. It doesn't address the 100 or so from Dalewood, which was spoken by somebody else. You're also going to be putting, because you're closing a school with peak enrollment, with 83%, and it's a growing enrollment, you're going to be building a much larger school at George or Allen than if you waited until after the population did decline. Then you would put that school at, so the future George or Allen would be at less risk of being closed because of a bad utilization rate 20 years down the road. Also, I sat through that awful meeting about the French immersion policy, and everyone here, including staff, talked about the problems with dual-track schools. So, do you have any information about a triple-track school anywhere in Ontario and how successful it is? Where a dual-track school is not very successful, because you're going to have 3 languages. I'd also like to, the $3.2 million that's going to be saved if you spent 10 grand a year every year on Prince Philip, that money would take 320 years to realize those savings. So that's not a really good measure either. The program imbalance has been spoken of by other people with the French immersion in English. If it's true that the closure of Prince Philip closes off Prince Philip community to families and families move out, the population enrollment is going to drop for the consolidated George or Allen and for the Dalewood school, and both those schools will be at risk. Plus, all those schools you'll be losing money to other school boards or other communities.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Do we have any questions for clarification from the trustees at this time? Then do I have a motion to proceed? Thank you, trustee. Oh, yes, okay, go ahead, trustee Petal.
Sorry, forgive the voice. It's not working real well tonight. You said your very first question was trying to understand why was this ARC started in the first place. Was that ever answered by anyone for you, other than the fact that I know this board of trustees obviously approved it? But did it ever come out to give you any logic? Ever? Like, even if you didn't understand it, did anyone give you a reason?
The only 2 reasons that made any sense were provided by Trustee Bishop. One reason was provided in an ARC meeting, and one reason was provided in a private discussion. One was that this is their kick at $860,000 of guaranteed kindergarten, full-day kindergarten programming money, which seems a pretty paltry amount of money to try and be winning, and by closing a school. And the other one was it had to be done now because of the Dalewood Rec Center. I've spoken to planners over at the city, and they just wanted a decision made from the board that didn't mean that this had to be an ARC. They wanted to know if it was going to be continued to stay open. The data and everything else didn't. It was the school board itself that decided to put it through an ARC to answer that question, rather than just making a decision on the data.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for clarification? And I had some hands for motions. I think it was trustee Brennan and seconded by trustee Johnstone. Is that right? Or no, is trustee White? Does to Tracy. I'm looking for, well, thank you, trustee Brennan. Thank you, trustee White. All those in favor?
Thank you.
And I would like to thank the speaker for coming to share with us.